Welcome back. So in this lesson, we're going to look at jumping and double jumping. So if we take a little look here, we can see if we press the X button, Homer jumps, and then while in the air, if we press it again, we get a double jump. So the height of the first jump is this, and the height of the second jump is looks to be about half the height of the first jump. Also, another thing to note is rotation speed is a little bit slower while we're in the air. Also the movement speed, so how much Homer is going forward while he's in the air. So let's jump to Mixamo and check out the animations we're going to use. So let's type in jump. And let's see a suitable one. I think this one looks quite good. Quite simple, not too exaggerated. So download FX for Unity as always and with skin. Okay, let's jump to Unity. So let's drag and drop our new animation into your animations folder. Let's take a look at it, expand. Let's change it first to humanoid and then hit apply. Now we can go to the animation, hit Control D to duplicate, and then we can delete this object. Now let's look at the jumping animation and let's drag and drop our player model into the preview and see how it is here. Okay, so it won't be looping, we can leave that off. Y back into pose. This will be more for root motion movement. We're not going to do that, so let's keep this unticked, and I think everything else is fine. Now if we go to our base layer, let's drag and drop our jumping in, and then once the jumping animation is complete, we go back to our locomotion state. Now we are going to need a condition here, and the condition of course will be is on ground. We already have one called is on ground, but that's for falling over, so let's create a new one and we'll say is grounded. So that'll just be when the player's standing, not when it's lying on the ground. Now let's go to our player and our player script. Open that and let's look at the variables we're going to use. So just after movement, let's create a new header, and we'll say jumping. And the first thing we're going to need is our max jump height. So let's go serialize field. It's going to be a float max jump height. We're also going to need a jump time. So serialize field float max jump time. Now one thing we're going to change before we go any further is how we handle gravity. So if we go down to handle gravity, we say if the character controller is not grounded, we apply gravity. But gravity should be applied all the time. So let's go back up and now let's see when we are grounded. So we say serialize field float grounded gravity. And we're going to apply this through a vector 3, same way we do for the movement. So far the movement has just been on the X and Z. We just zero out the Y. Now we're going to do another pass of a character controller.move. This time we're going to apply a Y velocity. So same way here we have move direction. Let's create a new vector 3 and we'll call it vertical velocity. Now if we go back down to our handle gravity, we'll say if the character controller is grounded, then let's delete this stuff for now. Then we will apply the vertical velocity. So vertical velocity dot y equals grounded gravity. And then we can just apply this down here. Character controller dot move vertical velocity multiplied by delta. And then if the character is not grounded, of course, then we're going to apply a constant downwards velocity and not just a set grounded gravity. So else vertical velocity dot y plus equals gravity. Now we could use Unity's built-in gravity, so I think it's physics.gravity, but we're going to make our own one. So gravity, and then we're going to multiply this by delta. It needs to be gravity. We need to create this now. So let's go up, and we're actually going to keep this as private. So in jumping, let's just go float gravity, and we will set that shortly. So let's first look at the single jump, and then we'll move on to the double jump. So this is under handle kicking. Let's say void handle jumping, and we're going to need our button input here. So let's say input container, and then if, so it's going to be our X button or the A button on an Xbox controller. So input container dot A input dot pressed. Then in here we're going to jump, and at this stage then is jumping will be true. So let's just add that in our flags. Serialize field. Let's get rid of these double square brackets. bool is jumping. Let's go back down to your handle jumping, and we'll say is jumping equals true. And of course, if you're not pressing is jumping, else is jumping equals false. Now, I suppose another condition we need is if the player is grounded. So if that button is pressed and character controller dot is grounded, then we jump. Now we're going to add this to the vertical velocity we're applying in our gravity. So let's say vertical velocity dot y equals jump velocity. Okay, so now we need to actually create this value. Let's go up to our variables. So this formula I'm going to use now, I actually got from the YouTube channel I Heart Game Dev. He has a great video on jumping with character controllers. There's a lot of methods for jumping with a character controller, but a lot of them are not great. Usually just apply a Y value to the character so they kind of snap there and then they fall, which isn't good. You want a gradual jump up and jump down. So after a lot of research, I found this method to be the best. And as I Heart Game Dev mentions in the video, this actually comes from a GDC talk on jumping in games. So I'll leave a link in the description to that video if you want to watch it yourself. So the variables we're going to need is a jump velocity, float, let's call it initial jump velocity, because this will change with our second jump. And now if we go down to our player init, we're going to create a variable float called time to apex, and then that's going to equal our max jump height divided by 2, and then our initial jump velocity is going to equal 2 times the max jump height divided by our time to apex. Now we're also going to set our gravity here as well, so it's this private variable that we haven't set yet, and our gravity will equal minus 2 multiplied by max jump height divided by mathf dot pow, and then it'll be time to apex and 2. Now let's go back down to our handle jump, and now here it's going to equal our initial jump velocity. Let's just remove this. Now if we go up to our handle gravity, also let's add a condition that we only apply this if is grounded and we're not is jumping. Okay, let's go up to our update method. So if you remember, we apply our vertical velocity in our handle gravity method. So we actually want to put this after this method, and then it'll be applied the next frame. So handle jumping, and then we need our input container. And now the last thing we need to do for this part is we go down to our handle animations, and we need to set our is grounded. So animator dot set bool, and we called it is grounded, and then that'll just equal our character controller dot is grounded. Okay, so let's go back to our game. Let's set up some variables here now. So for our max jump height, let's say 3 to start off with, and our max jump time, let's set it to 1, see what it looks like. And for our grounded gravity, I think we do something small, so it has to be a minus number, of course, so minus 0.5. I think everything else looks good for now. We have this set up. Let's see if this works first time. Press play. Okay, so the jumping works, but the animation is not playing. Also, our values are definitely way off here. That's way too high. So let's go back to our code, see what's going on here. So of course, in our handle jumping, we're not actually going into that animation. So very simply, let's just say animator dot cross fade in fixed time, and then let's see what we call that animation. Jumping, copy that, go back in, want to play jumping, and then just set this as 0.5 F maybe. Now let's try this again, and I think we'll set the max jump height to 2 instead. Let's see how this looks now. Okay, so we got the animation, but he goes out of it. Also, there's a bit of a delay because he needs to like jump up first. So let's actually edit this animation. So let's click on our player animation. Let's actually look at our player focusing. Click the model animation, and let's look at the jumping. Yeah, so this build up here we don't really need. So maybe from here. So let's just drag all these keyframes and delete them. Control A, bring these back, Okay, so it starts from there. I don't think we need these landing ones either. We'll just transition. So jump up, and then here would be kind of where the animations would stay. So let's just drag over all these and delete them. Let's try this again now. Okay, so still something's not quite right. Definitely, I think maybe the transition time is too slow. I think it should be more immediate when he jumps. And obviously, we're going back into locomotion before we should. So let's take a look at this. Look at our animator. Yeah, so we haven't set the condition here. So let's change this to is grounded. Should be true before we return. And let's just take a look at our transition here. It does not have exit time, and the transition duration. Yeah, we should make this a lot smaller. Let's say 0.15. And let's look at our code again. Yeah, 0.5 is too much. We need this smaller, so even 0.05 F for a transition. So it's a bit more immediate. We don't want it at 0 because then it'll just snap to the animation. We want a little bit of blending. So let's see how this looks. There we go. That looks much better. I think the height's better too. Now we are moving a bit fast. If we remember from looking at the game, our move speed's different while in air. Also, our rotation speed is different. So at the minute if we jump and if we hold the sprint button, we'll see we'll move faster while in air. So we need to fix that. I think first though, we'll look at the double jumping because it's quite simple, and then we'll move on to that. So let's go back to our code, and we're going to go back up to our flags, and this is Control D, and then we'll change this. We'll call this is double jumping. And if we go back down to our handle jump, we'll say if is jumping is already true, then now we're double jumping. So is double jumping equals true. Now we need to add a condition here. So obviously double jumping won't work because we won't be grounded. So I think we should just put an R. So let's put brackets around this. So if character is grounded or we are not is double jumping, then we can come into here. And of course, we should set is double jumping to false here. So reset it, but we don't want to reset if we are in air. So let's just say else if, and if it's jumping is true and our character controller is on ground, then is jumping is false and is double jumping is false. So now we'll just go in here and apply this. Let's save that. I think we can test this already. I think this should work. It's a simple boolean, so we can fire that method again before we touch the ground. So jump and jump again. And we can't jump a third time, it stops after that. Okay, I think that looks good. So of course we need to change the second jump height. Let's go here and say float, jump, velocity equals, and then is double jumping. If that's true, we'll say that our jump velocity will be half of the initial jump velocity. And then if not, then it'll just be the initial jump velocity. And then we'll change this to jump velocity. Let's test what this looks like. Okay. So that's half. We do go up a little bit. I don't think that's enough though. Maybe it's more than half in the game then. So let's take a look at this again. Maybe we'll change this to a percentage. So let's go back up to our variables, and for jumping, let's create a new one. Serialized field, float, and we'll say second jump height. And we'll use this as a percentage actually of the first jump height. So if we go down here then back to our handle jumping, instead of divided by 2, we'll multiply it by our second jump height. Now if we go back to our game, we look at the inspector for the player, and our second jump height, let's change this to 0.75, so 75% of our first jump, so a little bit over half. Yep, I think that looks a lot better. Now, the last thing we need to do is change our rotation speed and our movement speed while in air. So let's go back again, back up in our movement now. We have our walk speed, run speed. Let's do serialize float in air speed. And then for our walk rotation, run rotation, serialize field, float in air rotation speed. And now of course we'll apply the movement speed in our handle movement. So simply before this, we'll say if is jumping, then our move speed will equal our in air speed. And then else, I think we can just keep this the way it is. And now down to our rotation, same thing. So if is jumping, then rotation speed equals in air rotation speed. And then else, it'll just have this that we already had. Let's go back to our game now and let's populate these variables. So our in air speed should be much slower than any of these. So let's say 1 for now, see how that looks. And then our in air rotation speed also much slower. So let's say 5. Now let's press play. Yep, that feels way better. Maybe we can actually change the speed up a little bit. But other than that, I think the rotation is quite good. Maybe the rotation can actually be a little bit slower. So we'll increase the move speed up to, let's say 2.5 our in air speed, and then our in air rotation speed will be, let's set that down to 3. Let's try this again. Okay, and then we jump. Yeah, that may be a bit too much now, so maybe just set it to 2 or maybe 1.5. I think that's good for our rotation though, and now I'm also holding the sprint button here and that doesn't affect anything, which is what we want. That only affects when we're actually sprinting. So one last time, let's change this from 2.5 to 1.5 and we'll keep this as 3. Let's test one more time. There we go. So now in our character controller, we can walk. We can go into jog just by putting the stick fully forward. If we hold square button or the B button on Xbox, we start to sprint. We can kick. And so there's one thing. If we jump while kicking, we go into the jump. I don't think we want that, so let's just put in an extra check for that. So very simply, in our handle jump, we'll just say if is interacting, or again, if not interacting, then we can do this stuff. And that should fix that. So we kick and we try to jump, doesn't work until we're out of the kick. So we can jump, double jump, sprint, walk, jog. And there we go. So that's going to do it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Our next lesson is going to be our last for this series. We might do a second season if enough people want that. But the next one is going to be a car controller. I expect it's going to be a long one, so I might actually break it up into 2 videos. But we'll see. If you enjoyed this video, if you're enjoying the series, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.